the days when we used to live in joy and peace. I wanna go back to the days.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, you know, at the beginning of this program, we were talking about mother tongue and vernacular.
I still wonder why it's called mother tongue. What happened to the fathers? You're not single parents.
Well, I did say there was father tongue as well, didn't I?
You said vernacular is father tongue. What do you mean by that?
Anyway. There is, UNESCO has designated an International Mother Tongue Day. And I find that very exciting, especially in today's Nigeria, where many of our children think that the sign of being tush is not being able to speak your mother tongue.
I'm still protesting
We
that mother
speak
part.
the Queen's English. Oh dear. You heard somebody's voice in the background.
I'm still protesting. Why mother? Why not father? What did fathers do?
Father tongue. Father tongue.
Here we go again. I'm outnumbered.
There you go.
Let's not even go there.
So according to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, 40% of the population globally does not have access to an education in a language they speak, like us. I speak Shekiri. He speaks Yoruba. We were taught in English.
Of course.
So UNESCO has a point. So this is the reason that the UNESCO has set aside the 21st day of February every year to raise awareness on the importance of learning in your mother tongue. And the theme for this year is using technology for multilingual learning, challenges and opportunities.
I'm wondering how you learn Pythagoras' theorem in Ishekiri. You were saying something. Just go ahead.
Pythagoras' theorem was learnt in Chinese. So what is in Mandarin? What is your problem?
Just a question. Introduce your guests.
We have two guests in the studio. It's my pleasure to welcome an educationist, Antoinette Omosage. Good morning.
Good morning.
Somebody apparently that I knew in my other life. And Theodora Isamagu Bankole, a practical impact of Practical Impact Network.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
good
coming.
morning. Yeah, honored.
Yes. So you have been in this business forever.
Seems that way.
We were taught in English. What are you trying to tell us today with this International Mother Tongue Day?
What the late Professor Fafunwa had been saying for 1,000 years, that we need to teach our children in the language closest to them. In this case, we use the language of the locality. In other words, if a child is living in Mushi, the language of the locality there is Yoruba. So that child would automatically be made to learn the language of that area alongside his own mother tongue, because at the end of the day, what was planned for Nigeria way back when was that every Nigerian child will at least learn 2 Nigerian languages. One which we call the N1, which would have been the child's mother tongue, and then the N2, which in most likely would be the language of the locality wherever that child is. And this was in the policy on education as far back as the 1980s, 90s. It was in the curriculum.
This is still there.
Therein lies the tragedy. Unfortunately, whoever came up with a great idea to tamper with the Nigerian curriculum removed the Nigerian languages, and then it was further dealt a blow by the examination bodies, who decided that the children did not have to take a Nigerian language any longer. You know, in the past, you had to do 1 Nigerian language as part of your core exam subjects, but now they don't have to do that anymore. And in having done all of this, they literally removed the last vestige of the entire work of late people like late Babs Fafunwa, late Professor Juliet Macaulay, people who had worked seriously to see that this country, we raised, for the past 25 years I ran a school, we've always celebrated the Nigerian Language Day, the Language Day, International Language, Mother Language Day, because I've always been very, very clear that my students must speak in Nigerian language. And I couldn't afford, I would have been more than happy to provide up to 9 Nigerian language teachers, but of course I can't afford to do that. So I had at least 2. So we either taught them Yoruba, which would then be the language of the locality where the school was located, and then we had Igbo because it was easy to get an Igbo teacher, and so I had Igbo as well. And I must say that over the years, at least the first generation of children I had, they all learned, these 2 languages simultaneously. And it worked. In fact, we created language zones in that school in those days. If you walked through a particular section of the school, you were made to speak the language of that zone. So if you walk through the Igbo zone, you better be sure that maybe the Igbo teacher is looking around there and will expect you to talk to her in Igbo.
Say Kekime.
Exactly. And then you moved further down, it would be Yoruba zone, and then we also added French in those days. And it worked for us because we had a lot of our students who left school excited and happy that they could speak and write these languages. Unfortunately, the problem now is not even with the education sector anymore. The problem, we'll deal with the education sector, but we have to deal with the parents first.
Yes. I agree. Theodora, using technology for multilingual learning, okay? We haven't even learned the language yet.
Okay.
We want to use the language to teach technology.
Okay.
How are we going to do that?
All right. First of all, I remember when Professor Fafunwa, Babatunde Fafunwa said, let's teach the children in the language of the locality. People ask, I remember that. How are you going to say photos, whatever, photosynthesis in Yoruba? And I have an answer for that. I have a comeback. My comeback is, your name is Alero. I'm speaking Yoruba to you. I don't have to translate Alero to Yoruba before I call you Alero.
You can still call it photosynthesis in Igbo.
Yes, exactly. I can still call it photosynthesis and speak Igbo. You know it's photosynthesis. So now...
Pythagoras, are you listening?
He died a long time ago.
Are you listening?
So now... bringing technology into it does not mean, okay, we are talking about somehow it's becoming a bilingualism thing or multilingualism thing. So somehow, okay, for this thing not to just kill our languages like that, the African languages, okay, let's just key into it a bit. That's where technology comes in. If you want to use the French system of academy, from time to time, the French government will say, okay, new things have come, let's give them new names. They're going to connote them like about 100 things, about 1,000 things. They're going to sit down. So, okay, now we give this one name. This person calls it computer. We're going to give it her. This person calls this one a laptop. We're going to give it who. So if we're going to use that system to say, okay, now with technology, this name is what we're going to give to this in my language. Of course, there is no word like computer in my language. There's no translation. So we are going to have something like that as, okay, this is an academy. We are trying to give names, new names to the things that just came in our language. We can use that in this technology. But we can as well say, okay, I'm using my language to teach, to bring technology to come to life, yet I still pick a bit of those words. Those are weldings.
Yes.
So as to remain globally relevant.
Globally relevant. So,
I know that in some Nigerian languages, because something does not exist in our culture, when we translate from English, for instance, we describe what that...
Yes, that's what
like
we do.
in my language, a fork is ubonjeje, that with which you spike your food, put in your mouth.
Yes. Okay. So now,
so that is a fork.
So the syllables become too many
but
for an outsider to grab easily, right? That is the reason for this academy. If we can imbibe it, we sit down, we just connote all the things that have been new, the new things that have come in the past 5-10 years. We bring them together and we now say, okay, this is going to be the new name. So this time around, it's not as if somebody will just stand up and say, okay, Kwajeje will come first in my place too. Kwajeje, I'm an honorable woman.
Okay.
Kwajeje. So it won't be something like that. We agree.
Kwajeje.
So we just, okay, let's get something with a few syllables, maybe one, maybe two, so that it will be easy to grab. That's the French pattern, actually.
Well,
so
Académie Française.
yeah.
I think in creating the wordings we need in education, what people need to do is to recognize the fact that, yes, we're not going to be able to translate everything into, quote, the known languages, but we're going to say it in words that explains it to us ourselves. For example, the Yoruba language, the Yorubas don't have a word that talks about internet, but they will talk about ero alujara. In other words, this machine that covers the whole world, connects the whole world.
And everybody. Please say that again.
Ero alujara.
Alujara.
In other words, the machine that connects the whole world, and everybody understands that. So yes, there is a.
Ero asoro magbesi.
That's your the radio.
It's
the radio.
The radio.
It's not funny.
Yeah, you can afford it and you're not busy. That's true. But you see, the issue for me is we're jumping. If we follow the UNESCO's challenges and technology and all of that, we're going to miss our own point. And our point right now is our parents need to be re-educated, because they have grown up in a system where they used to say, they will punish you if you speak vernacular. And our languages were the vernacular. Now we have to get back to the point where the vernacular now is the English language, which I don't want them, because a lot of times, a lot of our children, they speak English, and I'm surprised, I'm shocked. The level of English spoken by our children in this country at the moment is atrocious. They're not speaking properly. I mean, we grew up in a season where we were trained by mostly probably foreigners, and we learned to speak the English language properly. Today, they're not speaking the English language properly. They're not spelling properly.
Vernacular properly.
Exactly. And then they can't speak their own languages. So now we've got a society of children who can think in English. They can think in their culture. What exactly are they thinking in now is the question.
Okay, now this issue, when you started speaking, I just Googled the word vernacular. Now, the language or dialect spoken by the ordinary people in a particular country or region. The adjective of language spoken as one's mother tongue, not learned or imposed as a second language.
Okay.
So we are the ones that are speaking the one that is vernacular.
Okay.
So let us have this conversation in vernacular. It's only that if I start speaking in Yoruba and you started speaking your own language, there's going to be cacophony here. But in solving the problem, you are about us even re-educating
parents, yes.
Now, where did that ideology start from? Of people saying if you speak in your mother tongue, you are speaking in vernacular, you have to speak in the English language. Where did it come from, and how much of a problem is it today?
It came from our educational system under the British colonial government, the colonial administration. And the reason was they needed the Africans, and I'm going to use the African word, the Africans to be able to speak the Queen's English so that they can relate with the mother office, the crown. And so they needed that. So everybody was being taught that. If you wanted to go beyond just being a typist, you should be able to speak good Queen's English in order to get a good job in an office or even go abroad. So that became a part of what we are. All these people were coming into the schools. Remember the idea of you put your hand in your ear before you can go to school. So they were much older when they came in, and it was a race to try to clean them up enough to be able to face the crown. Now, once that became entrenched, it continued because then the English was a very big deal. If you didn't pass your English, you didn't do well in English, you couldn't carry yourself in English, you were not going to go very far.
And you are not educated.
You are not educated, exactly. So that became a part of who we are. And like I constantly say, it appears that in our collective minds in this country, we do have an inferiority complex.
Of course.
That keeps us marooned in a mindset that says, if I am not doing certain things the way they want me to do it, then I'm not good enough.
Are you by any chance calling for a constitutional review? Because
I
you
would
know that
rather
that's
have-
the language.
Well, you see, that's
the official
that is a problem as well. Because, for example, I remember years back, I had the opportunity to take some of my students to the Ogun State House of Assembly on a day in which the Ogun State House of Assembly conducts business in the mother tongue, in Yoruba language.
Wow.
I was fascinated
they
by
do that in Lagos.
Yes, I was
Wow.
fascinated by that.
Fantastic.
And so I took my students there. And of course, I had to take along my Yoruba teachers because I knew most of the children were going to be, but we had already groomed them to be able to say certain things, you know, do all of that. But it was to them, they were fascinated. They said, am I saying that all these things are written in Yoruba? I said, well, if they're speaking Yoruba all throughout today, whoever is recording would have to record in Yoruba.
Indeed.
And then they can go and translate it into English. The children found it very fascinating. And they asked me if they did the same in the, federal house. And I'm like, well, I
gonna be a
don't
problem.
know. That would be difficult because it's a federal house
From all over the country.
all over the country, and there'll be too many languages
Okay.
to deal with.
Yes.
This is just a beginning of a conversation. We can't really go far with it. But, madam, conducting legislative business in Yoruba language, that's one way to look at it. There are those who are asking the question, wait a minute, in the north, they teach classes, Professor is just telling me that they teach classes in Hausa language.
Oh, yeah.
Does that mean that they also teach English language in Hausa language? And that's what happens?
Actually, the teacher, usually when a French teacher comes to your school, here or now or then, he's just going to speak French because this is French section. So when he wants to teach English, he's going to teach English with English. But if he sees that the student is not getting it clearly, he's going to delve into Hausa a little.
To explain.
Yeah, to explain. And actually, they grab it more. Those of us from the past, 40s and above,
By the way, have you ever seen any Hausa child who cannot speak Hausa?
No,
I
don't
haven't
How is that gonna
seen
happen?
any.
they don't exist.
I haven't seen
I haven't
any.
seen one.
Although I've seen one in Warri that couldn't speak fluently,
But
But
could
at
still
least
understand.
could understand and could speak a bit of it. But in my place, for instance, in Delta State, in Ughelli, you see a child that does not know anything beyond Migo. That's all. Just say, where is your mother? Anywhere up. He doesn't understand. And the next slang is, oh, Robo help. Or Robo is too hard. You
imagine?
that is supposed to have that language, that is supposed to promote the language and say it is hard because you heard it from your mother.
It now raises the question she asked the other time about re-educating parents.
Okay.
Do you see that necessary? How do we begin that conversation?
That's what we do in Practical Impact Network. That's what we do. We promote the mother tongue in the home front.
Is that understanding, has it even percolated to the parents themselves to see how important it is for them to raise those kids in their mother tongue?
Drive that confidence, the interest into them first. If you drive the interest in, that's what we're trying to do. We drive the interest in, and we tell them that if you believe in someone else's language, you have lost your confidence, inferiority complex. Now,
Am I misguided? Because I begin to see that many parents now see the importance of teaching their children the mother tongue. Or am I misled? Or...
no, they just mourn. They just mourn. Hey, what do we do? It has not. But they don't do anything about it, actually.
Because sometimes they take their children out and they want to say something to them that they don't want anybody else to.
To understand.
And then they regret not having taught the children and they do their eyes and the children say, Mommy, something wrong with your eye.
Exactly.
Alero, it ends there.
No, but you know,
When she goes
unfortunately,
home, she's still going to continue with English because it's a bit of a problem. When you say, okay, sit there in your language and the child does not understand, before you know it, you have gone back. So I always tell
Because
parents...
you are frustrated.
Yeah, you're frustrated. So I always tell parents, continue until you become comfortable with it. First of all, we are not even comfortable in this
Well, at
language.
least let's make sure that they, even if they can't speak it, let's make sure that they understand.
They need to,
No,
they need to
if
even
they
be able
don't
to
understand,
they
if
need
you
to
say-
even be able to recognize it first. You wanted to say something
No,
earlier.
I was just thinking of a story my medical doctor told me. I was talking about this mother language issue with her once, and she said she was actually caught short when she traveled to South Africa with her children, about 5 of them, and they were in line trying to pick something, and the daughter was talking to her, and she started talking to the daughter in English. And the girl at the till said to her, "Why are you doing that?"
Okay.
And she was like, "What did I do? Why are you talking to your daughter in English? You can't speak to her in your language. We'll never do that in South Africa. Every child in South Africa must speak first and foremost Zulu or whatever."
But there
the
is a
source.
problem there as well, because when I studied French, and 3 of us from University of Ibadan went to the same university in France, in Nice. I am Shekiri. The other girl was Igbo from Asaba. The 3rd girl was Yoruba. And we constantly were asked the question, why do you 3 communicate in English? And we had to explain all the time that there is no Nigerian language. There are 3 of us, and we both speak 3 different languages, so we cannot speak and understand each
But
other.
you see, that is not a problem. That shouldn't be a problem. You should be able to celebrate it in that case. I mean, when I schooled in the US, I always had that question asked, "You Nigerians are not together." And I'm like, it's because we're not together in our languages that we are all united at the end of the day. Because I would happily say I'm Edo, but you do not ask me that question as a first question.
Yes.
Because your first question to me should be not, where are you from in Nigeria?
yeah.
It should be,
Where?
where are you? Who are you?
Right,
I'm a
I'm Nigerian.
Nigerian. And that should stop it. Because they don't do that for other Africans. It's only Nigerians who do, they do it too. And they should appreciate the fact that, look, I'm a Nigerian from a very diverse background.
Yes.
So if you talk to me in any of my Nigerian language, I may not be able to tell, but I'll recognize that that's a Nigerian language.
Yeah.
But that's not the one I speak. So I'm a person of very rich cultural background. And so I make a big deal out of that. That's the other thing is that Nigerians need to appreciate the fact that we have a very diverse culture. People say to me now, "But you see, it's not my fault. My husband is Yoruba and I'm Igbo." And so that the child is blessed because the child has an opportunity to learn. I used to tell to my staff who are married, I have a staff who is Idoma and the wife is Yoruba, and of course they live in Shagamu, right? So the language of the locality is Yoruba. And then I say to the children, "Your children don't speak Idoma." And the man looked at me and said, I expect them to speak Idoma. And I made a big deal out of it. And do you know that now those little girls, they're growing up on that premises, they speak Yoruba fluently, they are learning to speak Idoma. Because he asked me, I said, it's very simple. Children, they can be like the Tower of Babel. That's a beautiful thing about language. If a child is in an environment where you're speaking Ishekiri, he's speaking Yoruba, she's speaking Urobo, I'm speaking Edo, that child will pick it all up.
All of it.
The child will figure it out eventually and be able to figure out which one is which.
Indeed.
But when we don't let them do it at all, that's where the parents are at fault.
You talked about Nigerian. You talked about
We're
parents.
running out of time.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, she talked because we're talking about the international mother tongue. Then the mother is a parent. Now, so you talked about the inferiority complex of parents.
Yes.
Do we have? How do we begin to redress that?
We reparent. We have to reparent our parents.
So parents need to be parented.
Yes, parents need to be parented. That's
You're
what
listening.
I do.
You need to be
They
you need to be parented. You're a child.
Okay. Theodora, the 20th of February, 21st of February,
yes.
What's going to happen on that day?
Okay, on that day for PIN Africa, we're going at POP, Public Opinion Poll. We want to find out those that can speak their languages, those from an intertribal home that can speak up to 2 languages. actually, we can speak, children, and every child can speak up to 5 different languages at the age of 2. For as long as the child can talk at the same time. Don't just get that child confused. Don't speak 2 at the same time. Because if you speak 2 at the same time, the child is going to get confused and is going to pick the simplest. And today, English is the simplest. So we are going to go out there. Ask them, where is your mother from? Where is your father from? We are from 2 different places. My mother is Yoruba, my father is Idoma, and I can speak the 2. So we are just going to go around. That's what we're going to do. But in Paris, we are going to celebrate culture all over the world. You know, Paris is the headquarters of UNESCO. It started from there, 1999. Okay, they agreed during that conference in 1999. 2000, it started February 21st, because of the killing of 7 students that were killed. Yes, at Dhaka in Bangladesh, because they were, there was a movement for language. They were trying to impose a Pakistan language on them, and these people said we wanted Bangladesh youth. They were killed. 7 of them, and about 300 were injured. People still insist today that those that were killed were more than 7. So because of that, 1952, they started marking it until 1999, that UNESCO agreed that, okay, let's commemorate these children. So 2002, February 21st, it started. So that's what they are doing, celebrating languages all over the world, celebrating culture, diversity. But
any celebration in Nigeria?
Okay, Nigeria does not observe that yet.
No, they do. They do. Sorry.
Okay.
A few years ago, I think the Federal Ministry of Education now pronounced the 21st of February as a day to be, they call it cultural day. You know how we tend to turn things around.
Right.
The emphasis is no longer on the language, it's now on culture and all that. Well, that's fine. It's a good place. It's a jumping off place. It's a start. But that was just a few years ago.
Okay, but they are really not celebrating it. It's just pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just pronounced.
Yeah, but we have learned something this morning.
Okay.
Parents have to be reparented.
Yes, reparented.
Especially,
And,
let me not say more than that.
And they should know that.
and it is a good thing for our children to actually speak our language. Do we want to live in a world where our language or our languages are dying?
Our culture disappears. That's what was
Because our
happening.
children cannot speak or understand our language. Thank you very much for coming.
Very
this morning.
welcome.
I would just like to say this, that my son speaks Urobo and Yoruba. In fact, my husband is Yoruba, I'm Bankole. My husband is Yoruba and I'm Urobo. And the child was raised here, is still here. He speaks Urobo and he speaks Yoruba. So if it can happen for me, it can happen too with you.
So good luck while you try to teach your children your native tongue. And happy International Mother Tongue Day. Thank you very much, Antoinette Amo-Osage, an educationist, and Theodora Esamagu Bankole, Practical Impact Network. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
for coming to have this very interesting conversation with us this morning.
And important.
Sunrise will be right back with the
home stretch, before which we are going to go to Ocean very quickly.
Okay.